All right, everybody, we back finally. Sunday nights with Pastor Neil. I feel like I've been gone for months. I feel like I ain't seen you in like a month.
I know.
But no, really, missed a couple weeks. We had vacation, ball
Father's
tournaments,
Day.
Father's Day. We had all kinds of stuff going on. So we are glad to be back, that's for sure. And we're going to kind of pick up and end tonight with what we have been talking about for the few weeks before we had all our breaks here, where we talked about living the holy life, living in holiness, and what it means to live in holiness and what it takes to live in holiness.
Right.
Like we said, there's everybody knows the church answers of what it means to, be holy, but to put it into action. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here, and these things we're talking about, especially in the youth and you guys. And I kind of want to start off with this. We had a baseball tournament this weekend with Wilkes and my youngest 9U baseball tournament, and that's a fun age to watch because they're still young enough to enjoy the game, and it's not a chore to them and that kind of stuff, and they have a good time. But we played earlier today. We made it into the gold bracket, and everybody was on a good feeling, and we made it in there, and we played the best team that we've played so far in a year and a half of playing. And we were tied 2-2 and tied 3-3, and then to go in the last inning, and they scored 2 runs and ended up beating us 5-3. Everybody was kind of disappointed, and it was just a few small mistakes that they made, and I mean small, especially for a 9U team. They missed a couple of catches, made one little base running error that you see high school kids make, and we were talking about some of the older kids playing and some of the errors and stuff that they make, and just what it can cost. And it really kind of got me thinking on the way home, and I was thinking about this, what we had to talk about tonight and all this stuff we were talking about, and I thought, we're at this point now where we've talked about all this stuff. Now we're here. These are the last few little things. Right. And that can make a big difference. A few little things can make a big difference. And like I said, we've been gone for a couple weeks, and it's almost like, do we really want to come in tonight? We've had a long weekend, this and that. It's the few little things that you can do that can put you into that living in holiness, or just being kind of on the sideline.
Absolutely.
And that's where we're at. We're talking about these actions and words and a few things you can do with friends and your life and what you can do. And it's now, once you get the main heart of the matter down, where you're saying, okay, I know what it is to be a Christian. Right. I know what it is to be kind of a church-going person and kind of a churchy person, you want to say. But now to really elevate into that next level, it's just a few little things. Right. And that's kind of where we're at, and we'll kind of hit a few things today. But just be focused and mindful of, okay, I know what it's like to lift people up, and we've talked about racism that's going on, and we've talked about all this other stuff that's going on, and I know what it's like to get these few little things, to get these things, the main issues, but now really take your Christian walk to the next level. Right. The studying, the prayer, the few little things that you can really do to get into that living in holiness. That's right. And I think, that's kind of what we're going to end. When we end this topic, we're kind of going to say, okay, everybody knows the main things. Now let's just really focus. We've got these 6 characteristic things that we've gone over, and we've got a few verses that we're going to touch on tonight to kind of end it up. And don't forget, we're reading out of Mark chapter 9, 33 through chapter 10, verse 12. That's where all this stuff came from. These are the 6 characteristics of holiness, and we've kind of gone over a bunch of them. Go back through and watch the videos if you need refreshing. But make sure you read that. Make sure you go over that. And let's really focus through this hard, because it's getting hard. It's getting hard not to go to church. It's getting hard not to want to go to church. You don't want to go to church. You don't want to do this. It's hard to get up. It's hard to push yourself in these times, because it just seems like we're taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and even as a country. Absolutely. As a city, as a county, I mean, all this stuff, we're like going forward, coming back, coming back, and that gets wearing. But really focus in on the little things that can take you to the next level.
I mean, even think, we were, sanitize, please wear a mask, to everything's open back up, let's go. Right. To, now it may be mandatory mask.
Now we're moving backwards.
Exactly. But it's almost, and I look at that, and it's easy to see those things and your view on mask or not. And I'll just be honest with you, I hadn't been wearing one probably like I should be. I'll just give you that. But the thing is, you look at that and you get frustrated, and then you look at life though, and you think there's a ton of people that know what they should do.
Absolutely.
And just say, man, that ain't no big deal. Then you find out, oh, it was a very big deal.
Right.
I had the privilege of working a 7-on-7 football tournament yesterday. And it was all day thing. And I mean, there were some incredible athletes out there. And Tavion Gass put it on and got some outside donors and, $1,000 to the winning team, but had some professional football players even out there. And it was great day. But I listened while they had workouts for about an hour before they kind of split up into teams of who was going to be on whose team to play the tournament. And I'm looking at all this great free coaching from guys that are credited coaches out here. That there wasn't a whole lot. I'd say it this way: there should have been a bigger turnout for that part than what there was. But then I watch as this game starts, and you hear it on the sideline. You know how it goes. Oh, I'm this and I'm that and all that, and then all of a sudden it's time to play, and you're like, well, the way he was talking, I'm not seeing it.
Right.
Knowing what to do, being able to execute that, and little things. I remember yesterday, one play that turned the whole game was a missed interception.
Yeah.
Had he caught this ball, game's over. Yeah. Instead, next place, touchdown.
Yep.
Ties the score. Next series, they get an interception and beat the team that should have won.
That's right.
And it was just little things.
One little mistake.
Yep. One little mistake.
And that's kind of what I was talking about, that just watching those kids play this weekend, you watching those kids play.
Yeah.
It's just the little things.
Absolutely.
And like you said, those guys, you get to a level, and even on Wilson's team, the little small kids, they know what to do.
That's right.
But sometimes in the heat of the moment,
that's right.
And as they're playing, that okay, I know I'm supposed to throw this ball to first, but I filled it and I see the kid, he's already on second, but maybe I should have thrown it to second, so I throw it to second, and that two runners on rather than one out, one on, and that little things like that, and that's, you can take, and I'm a firm believer of athletics is mimics life, and I grew up in athletics, and I'm sure kids that do other things that probably mimics life too, but I know athletics because that's what we grew up in, and that's what our kids do, and so, but little things in athletics can make a difference. Little things in life can make a difference. Little things, especially in your Christian life.
Right.
I mean, we've talked about these, you looking over the stuff where we're talking about these, both words and actions matter. We've talked to this about the kids, and we harped on it last time really hard, and we want to talk about it again this time, and you talked about to the youth leaders, your actions matter to these kids.
Yep.
And sometimes it can be one little thing that you do, or even more important, one little thing that you don't do.
Right.
That can really impact somebody's life. And that's where, as adults, we have to be really mindful of how we talk to these kids, how we act to these kids, how we, focus on their lives, and how we can be examples of holiness to these kids just by little things that we can do. And that's where we've really got to be focused. And that's what happens is, I watch these kids, they lost a little bit of focus, and then it was all downhill from there.
Right.
And sometimes especially, trust me, I've felt it this past few weeks where we've been gone and we've been out and we've been out of church, and we spent all this time, even through the pandemic, because of things going on when we were doing videoing and live streaming, we were in the church. I mean, like, even though church wasn't meeting, we were in the church. I was in the church more without church meeting than I was when church was meeting, So,
that's right.
And it kind of got in that groove. Well, 2 Sundays, all of a sudden, I'm out of the groove, and I'm thinking, do I really want to get up and go,
Right.
And that little things like that can change your mindset that quick. And that's
exactly
what you got to be focused on. These things really matter. These things really, this holiness, this living in holiness is a big deal.
Right. There's been a lot of jokes about, and I know some of them are out of a place of almost anxiety, of fear or doubt or wherever it may be coming from, but, of the things that are happening. I think we missed the murder hornets, but anyway, everything that's happening, but this little sandstorm.
Yeah.
And we sat outside and I thought, man, that's a bunch of crock.
Yeah.
And then you go outside and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, you can see it and you're like, what in the world? And it goes, well, this has happened before. I've never heard of this.
No, I don't remember that ever
I
happening.
don't ever remember this. I've never heard anybody talk about this kind of thing. And you see all this weird stuff happening now. And it makes you think, is something trying to, it will open up a little bit of the thought process of, is God trying to get our attention?
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to over spiritualize it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you think, wow, what a weird time to be alive.
I'm sure the people sitting through the plagues
Yes.
back in the day were going,
Yes. Well, here's another
what the
funny
crap
note.
is this, you know?
Our house, well, I'll say our house, our neighborhood, because Mr. Phil, our next door neighbor, says the same thing's going on. We got little frogs everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I made the joke. I was like, okay, here we go. You know,
That's
that kind
right.
of
What's
thing.
next?
You know,
Yeah.
somebody better put some blood on the doorpost. Your firstborn's
that's
gonna be
right.
dead soon.
That's
You know,
right.
that kind of thing. What in the world's going on? And I mean, we couldn't walk outside. It was like the grass was moving. And I'm like, what in the heck?
Yeah.
You know, it was just really weird. And you know, it's funny, but I'm looking at those things and I'm seeing all the little stuff that's happening. And all the little stuff. Let me back up a little bit. I heard a family going through something, and the lady was at the meeting with a divorce attorney, and it was like, well, what actually happened? And they're like, well, I don't know. He goes, okay, I get it. It must have been the last drop in a full glass of water.
That's right.
And I thought that really kind of stuck out to me, because my thinking would be, all right, it's just a drop.
Yeah.
But if you're already full,
Yeah.
it's going to run over. So that one drop becomes very, very important at that moment.
That's right.
And there's so much little things for the negative in our spiritual walk that before you know it, you're overwhelmed.
That's right.
Overwhelmed.
And that-
overdone.
and I'll tell you, I was really thinking about that on my way over here. I was thinking, you know, here I am. I know all the answers. Not all the. I don't want to say that. I know all the answers to the biblical
Right.
to the Sunday school questions.
That's right.
I don't know all the answers to life. But I know all the stuff. I get all the way this stuff goes.
Right.
And I understand how this works. But I find myself doing the same thing. Like,
Right.
you know, and it's like you said. Okay, here's a drop in the cup. Here's a drop in the cup. Here's a drop in the cup. And you think, okay, it's no big deal that I'm, you know, not living the holiness today. Well, you add that drop to the cup, then tomorrow,
Right.
the same thing, and tomorrow the same thing. It's one little thing. Then all of a sudden you got a full cup of water, like you just
That's
said.
right.
And that works in everything. That works in marriage. That works in your family. That works in your school life. You get on a habit of not doing your schoolwork,
Yeah.
and then next thing you know, I got a week's worth of assignments that are due in 2 hours. You know, and had I just done, and we tell Tucker that all the time.
Yep.
Tucker, if you just spend 20 minutes a day,
That's right.
10, 15 minutes a day sometimes, 10 minutes
Yep.
a day here studying this, 10 minutes a day studied again, 10 minutes a day studied again. It's so much easier than the night before the
That's
test studying for 3 hours trying to catch
exactly
everything
right.
up, you know. And
That's
I'm
right.
not saying I'm bad about doing that kind of stuff too, but
Oh, I am
mean,
too. I'm a great procrastinator.
That's right, you know. But I mean that's basically what we're doing is we procrastinate with our Christian life too.
Yep.
You know, okay, well, yeah, I know I'm supposed to treat people this way, but I'll next time around I'll do this. You know what? And as you pile it on, then all of a sudden you found yourself and you're buried in this hole, and then it looks like I can't get out of the hole.
Right.
And you don't think
I'm
that the
stuck
devil
now.
uses that against
Absolutely.
you that says,
That's right.
all right, you've gone too far now. There's no turning back.
Right.
So, and it's just little things that you did along the way that
That's
get
right.
you there. So
And this is where, now talking to youth leaders, this is where youth leaders become so important, because there's so many kids that they screw up. Of course they screw up.
yeah.
They're kids. You know, they're teenagers.
right.
You know, and it's easy to look back. And in fact, I just had a conversation with Cicely Brown today and was talking about, man, I look at some of these kids that think they're no good or think that they're out, and I'm thinking, you are 10 times better than I was
Oh,
at your
yeah,
age.
yeah.
You know, oh shoot, no, you got tons of potential.
That's right.
You know, that kind of
That's
thing.
right.
And I honestly think this is why youth leaders become so valuable, because we have that power to make or break that kid at that very moment of saying, look, you can do this. Look, you can be that. We've got to do better. And I'm not just talking about Bethesda or the Stand Youth Ministries. I'm talking about the world. We got to do better with the encouragement for some of these kids. some of them don't have anybody to answer to. They don't have anybody to check them. And they got to have somebody. It's not their fault that they're 15 years old and making stupid decisions when they've got nobody in their life holding them accountable or checking them on those stupid decisions.
Right.
And that's where we've got to be. But with that means our actions have got to match what we're trying to tell them to do. You know, man, you need to get involved and you need to do this and you need to do that. And you need to get involved and do this, you know, that kind of thing.
And
so
we had the same conversation with Wilt today. We were talking about doing some more stuff with the baseball and doing this and that. And I told me and Stacy both, we looked at each other and said, you know, Wilt's 9 years old, and if I'm not willing to get out there with him and do it, it's hard for me to tell him, hey, you got to do this, but I'm not willing to get out there and do it with you.
That's right.
And that's where we are as a society, and especially as youth leaders to young people.
Right.
And I, like I said, I don't like to consider myself too old, but you know, I'm closer to 40 than I am to 30. So, you know, I'm a lot older than these kids, and as you get older, you feel yourself shifting to this thing of like, I'm going to tell you how to do it, but I might have done it wrong, and I might continue to do it wrong, but this is how you're supposed to do it.
Right.
When really we should be saying, you know what, watch how I do it.
Right.
And that's how you do it.
That's right.
And that's where we get away from it as people involved with youth, because everybody wants to tell young kids, back in my day, this is how I did it, this is how you do it, this is how you need to do it, this is how I was brought up in church, this is how we did church, this is how you're doing it different, this is how, rather than saying, you know what, you might be doing it different, but I'm willing to accept the way you're doing it different, but in return, I want you to help me as you grow. I want you to make these changes as well. I'm willing to make the changes. Now you be willing to make the changes.
Right.
And kids will adapt to that and say, okay, if this guy is willing to come down to my level to do things that he's not comfortable with, now it's time for me to step up and do things that I'm not comfortable with.
Right.
And,
you know, I watched yesterday as you got some guys that were out there just donating time to make one small little difference in a kid's life. And you know, I was making the joke. Zimmerman was out there, which he's in Columbia now and be at White School. But I watched him out there, you know, played at Toledo, running through the whole drills with them. Yeah. Not, hey, here's what I need you to do. It's, all right, watch me, guys. Yeah. And I watched that, and you can watch the kids. But then you can watch anybody that's involved, from 9-year-old baseball on up. They've watched somebody. Yeah. When they go to the plate, you know, touching all four corners, or you know, whatever. There's something that they've seen somebody do that they've incorporated in things. I'm watching them spin the football yesterday after they score a touchdown. I'm watching some of the dances. And I'm like, look at this. Yeah. You know, that kind. Go all the way back to the Icky Shuffle. I mean, I'm looking at some of this stuff and I'm thinking they're imitating. They're watching. Yeah. I want to be like whoever. Yeah. And we have that in the music world, the acting world, the sports world, or whatever. Why do we not have that in the spiritual world anymore?
And that's, I tell you, that is where I think that's where we are. We got all this to go over, and I don't know what we're going to get to tonight, but that is where I really feel like I have not done my job at times, because I'm not putting out an example sometimes even for my family, much less other kids and other families and other things, because like you said, we you know, back in our day there was a whole campaign, I want to be like Mike, I want to be like Mike, and all the kids want to be like Michael Jordan.
That's exactly right.
And now you look at the way youth sports, and you've been involved with youth sports your whole life. We're real involved in youth sports. You look at the way basketball has shifted to, I want to be like Mike.
He changed the game.
But then now even you got Curry, that all they do is shoot threes, and the kids nowadays, that's all they want to do is shoot threes.
That's exactly right.
And the whole game is shifted because, like you said, so you like, and you know, they act a certain way.
I heard a high school coach say this past season that just happened, says, does anybody play defense anymore? No. He screamed that in a practice. Right. I heard that with my ears.
And they don't, because the guys they're watching on TV don't play defense.
I'm going to give you that layup because I'm going to shoot a three down here.
That's right.
That's right.
And that kind of stuff. And like you said, in the acting world, and we watch these
Yeah.
movies, and we want to drive these fancy cars, and we want to do this,
That's
and we
right.
want to do this. But where are the leaders in the church that you
Right.
say, I mean, I remember coming up, and that's where I'm thinking. I remember coming up, and I remember looking at the older generation and thinking, man, when I get older, I want to be like that guy,
Right.
or I want to be like
That's
that
right.
woman.
That's right.
They're so, you got people, Regina Owens,
Yeah.
that you can call at 2:00 in the morning, that'll pray for you right there on the spot.
That's right.
That everything they do is biblically based. You got
Right.
the older generation. Well, I'm afraid my generation is not living up to that.
Right.
And I'm hoping that it's just because we still have some of the older generation that we're still kind of down on the way. But I've got to do better of bringing my generation into, hey, I want these young kids to look at me and say, man, I want to be like him.
Right.
In the spiritual world. I mean,
Right.
I don't want you to be like me in the athletic world or anything like that. But
Me either. I'm way past all that. I found that out yesterday.
that's right. But I mean, as far as the spiritual world, we churches have got to start creating mentors and people that these young kids that'll look up to and say, okay, that guy has a great family.
Right.
And it's not just on the surface.
Right.
Like it's, their families are involved, their kids are involved, they're involved, this and that and all this other stuff. And we've got to start setting that example.
Right.
And this holiness topic is we're talking to the kids, but we're talking just as much to the adults right now. As
Absolutely.
saying, if we don't set the example for the kids,
Right.
it's not gonna matter, because the kids, like you said, they're gonna find somebody to imitate, and even as adults, we find somebody to imitate.
Absolutely.
So make sure what you're putting out there for them to imitate is something worth imitating.
Right.
And we talked about it the other day when I think we've talked about so much other stuff, but you remember when Charles Barkley used to say, "I'm not a role model.
Yeah.
Don't let your kids be like me."
That's right.
But he was. I mean, people were trying to be like him, and people were,
And here's why to me that whole statement's hypocritical.
Yeah.
Then don't sell your jerseys.
That's right.
Don't reap money from that. Then if you don't want to be a role model, then
That's
don't be.
right.
Yeah.
So we these, whether or not you want to be or not,
You are.
You are.
Yep.
If you are an older generation, if you're a mom, if you're a dad, you are a role model to your kids, whether
That's
you want to
right.
be or not. That's part of the responsibility.
That's exactly right.
And that's biblical. Train up your child in ways
Right.
that they will not depart from me later.
Right.
That kind of stuff, and I think that's where we get into these things, and we see all this stuff, and we read all these verses, and we do all this stuff, and it's train up your child. We read it, we know it, honor your father and your mother. We know all these commands, and we know all these things, but we don't really live it.
Right.
And that's where the living in holiness is where you've got to start living that.
That's right. One of my I've kind of mentioned this a little bit Wednesday night. I've had an internal struggle going on, and this is not what I'll excel at all. Yesterday was a shot in the arm for me because I was on a football field. Now little embarrassing when you're rubbing elbows from some D1 football players and you're like, oh Lord have mercy, kind of thing.
Right.
Look like an Under Armour mannequin,
Right.
And then here I am, look more like the old Shawnee's fat boy thing that used to stand outside. But I got a chance, and it just gave me a chance to kind of just every little moment of being able to just plant a seed, a positive seed in that kid's life as it's there or whatever, and having that. And this is a struggle, and I've thought there's some churches that open wide back open, already back into the normal flow like nothing's ever happened or whatever, and here we are still meeting by Facebook and YouTube and whatever, and you log on and there's 2 kids watched or whatever, and it gets a little disheartening. And I thought, you know what, when we open the doors back, it's going to be like starting completely over.
Yeah.
Like start from scratch. So what are we going to do? And I was going through these, and I'm thinking, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
It's just these things were just simple. I mean, we started out with number 1, humility. That was the first one that you had to have, was humility, which is the opposite of pride, of making everybody feel. Number 2, loving welcome, making sure that everything's welcome. Then we dealt with how do we do that with elevating, we have the power to elevate or damage a teen's perspective of God, because a lot of those are looking at you, well, you call yourself a Christian, so their whole gauge of who God is and what God's like is by that person.
That's right.
Is that fair? Maybe not, but my mama used to always say life ain't fair. Yeah. That kind of thing. So then, both words and actions matter. And then it rolled right into the one that we were going, the first one to pick up with tonight is being not clicky.
Yeah.
Cliques. Now, you can't stop cliques.
Yeah.
And if anybody tells you their church don't have cliques, they lying.
They're lying.
Because a clique is any group that gets together.
Yeah.
That's the definition of a clique. So if you have a choir, you have a clique. If you have a praise and worship team, you have a clique. If you have an usher crew, you have a clique. If you have Sunday school teachers, you have a clique. Now, nothing wrong with cliques. What's wrong is how those cliques treat everybody else. Right. And see, what we have here is even picking up with verse 38 in Mark chapter 9. And there's one verse in here that the church world loves to quote. One verse in here that they love to throw out. But the context that it's in can really hurt your feelings.
That's right.
Real quick. Picking up with verse 38 of Mark chapter 9. Now John answered him, saying, Teacher, we saw someone who does not follow us casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow us. But Jesus said, Do not forbid him, for no one who works a miracle in my name can soon afterwards speak evil of me. For he who is not against us is on our side. Now, verse 41. For whoever gives you a cup of water to drink in my name because you belong to Christ, assuredly I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward. So we love that, whoever gives that cup of water. We like that. Yeah, ooh, yeah, we all about that.
That's right.
But what we don't understand here is John is jumping on somebody because you are not a disciple.
Yeah, you're not in our clique.
I'm a disciple.
That's right.
And John is actually up to here known as the son of thunder.
That's right.
So you got John the son of thunder that's looking at, he called the thunder down. Well, who you think you are?
Yeah.
And it'd be no different than one of the stand youth members to have a visitor come in and say, and when they stand up or raise their hands to pray, put your hands down. Yeah. You're not one of us. This is exactly what's taking place here. He can't speak on our behalf. We belong to you, Jesus. We following you.
Yeah.
He's not one of us.
He's not as good as us.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's pointing out. Now, first thing is, the first problem here is you putting somebody in a box that you don't know where they stand with God, right. First of all. In fact, they may be more anointed than you are.
Yeah.
They may be more called than you are. Because I can promise you, there's a ton of people that operate under the cross and it's their business logo instead of their calling.
Absolutely.
I'm only here waiting on a church to open up. I can't tell you how many times I've heard a youth pastor say that. So you mean to tell me you're not called to work with youth? Oh, no. Then why you doing it?
That's right.
And I've seen it. So what's amazing here is that in all of this same son of thunder actually becomes the apostle of love.
Yeah.
When you, because God, here you go. What did Jesus say? Do not forbid him. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden John's like, he can't do that. He's not one of us. And God's like, my Jesus would have talked like this. Shut your mouth.
That's right.
Who gave you the authority to tell him he's not one of us?
That's right.
You don't know if he's one of us or not.
Yeah.
I know. You don't know.
That's
That kind of thing. And that's almost where I can picture this happening, because all of a sudden John's like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, wait a minute. I didn't mean that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jesus. Yeah. That kind of thing. So you've got this whole thing, and when you place people in a box, they're going to stay in that box. One of the goals as a youth pastor, and I've said this for a long time, is to try to reproduce myself in them, leaving out all the bad stuff.
That's right.
My children, I want my children to be way better than I was.
Absolutely.
I want them to go way further than I did. This is how I've got family members. My whole desire when they first started was, I'll never forget when Taylor, my little brother, approached me about being a youth pastor. My first thought was, he can go so much further than I can.
Better, yeah.
I'm I'm over 50. You know,
right.
that kind of thing. And that's my goal. And that's how I knew, man, I love this kid. I want him to go way out there.
Yeah.
You know, I want Walker to go way out there. I can only go so far.
Yeah.
You know, especially at my age now. But and I ain't gonna lie, my role's changed a little bit. It's almost like a granddaddy mode.
That's right.
With a lot of the kids now. But the thing is, when you put them in a box, they're not going to go anywhere outside that box. And I think boxes it can be a helpful place to put some people in. If wild.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is I already know it all. And I've seen them too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've seen some of them sitting in some kind of meetings that, you know, you can tell by the body language. And some of the older youth pastors of us in those rooms and those kind of meetings, we're laughing because we're like, shoot, man, I've been doing this for 21 years. And there's things that happen. I'm like, man, ain't nobody ever told me about this. You know, and I'm thinking every day is different. So I don't care what book you've read. There's things going to happen. There ain't no case study on. And so I watch that if when you get put in a box sometimes with that, the attitude has got to be, I'm learning every day.
That's right.
I learned some stuff yesterday.
And I think that's where we're at. And we laughed about it earlier, but I think that's where we're at as a country. Like,
absolutely.
I think God is saying, oh, y'all know everything? Well, here comes a dust storm. Oh,
That's
y'all
right.
know everything? Well,
That's
here
right.
comes a virus that you have no idea what's going on. Oh, as a church, you know everything? Oh, okay. Well, you know everything because you have an Easter program that's better than everybody else's. Oh, okay, well, we'll just cancel Easter programs. So now what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying?
That's
like that
exactly
kind of
right.
stuff. I'm not speaking like I said.
No,
we've
no.
always said this. I'm not speaking at our church, but as church in a whole.
You can say the body of Christ.
That's right.
Period.
The body
Yes.
of Christ said, "Oh,
That's
okay,
right.
y'all got it figured out. Y'all got it figured out now. Okay, well now figure it out with a pandemic. going on.
Absolutely. That's
Oh, wait,
exactly
now
right.
y'all need me to come in and help you. You know, and that's
And see, to me, the whole second part of this is to church. We don't have it all here.
No.
We don't have it all here. There's things that we do that you're like, hey, we should have done that different.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
that's the whole point of it. Church don't have it all. I hate to tell some of y'all, guess what? Church of God ain't got it all either.
No.
You know, that kind of thing. In fact, I was talking yesterday. I had an incredible opportunity to meet Bishop Woods, which is the pastor of New Salem Church. He brought the prayer, and then I spoke after he was done, and you know, I had an incredible conversation with him. You know, and it was just the whole thing. We talked about this briefly too. About, you mean to tell me that Bloods and Crips, gangs can tie their colors together and get under one mind and one accord, but the church can't?
yeah. We got the Church of God, we got the Baptists, we got the Methodists, we
Lutheran,
got the Lutherans,
Episcopalian,
we got the Presbyterians.
Catholic, yeah.
I mean, we can't
Man, there's so
agree.
many different groups of Baptists and Presbyterian, I can't even keep up.
No.
Now there's different groups of Church of God.
Yeah.
You know,
And the Church of God, which is
it wasn't enough just to have Baptists and Church of God. Now we got to have branches of them.
But I'm saying, thankfully, Church of God has gotten away from this. But it used to be, oh, you go to Bethesda, y'all running 300, 400, 500. Now you're
Yeah.
up to 800 people.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. You don't like it? Oh, okay. Well, go down the street there and start one. You can run
Absolutely.
100 down there. Oh, you don't like that church? Well, go down the street here.
Ain't
All
no
of a sudden-
used to be like that.
Well,
They still.
But I'm saying, luckily it's gotten a little better.
has gotten a lot better,
But
right.
I mean, you go through some of these small towns and they got 6 Church of Gods running 50 people apiece. I'm like, why don't y'all just meet all together?
Absolutely.
Well, back in the day, so-and-so didn't get along with
There
so-and-so,
you
so
go.
they started their own church.
Yep.
You know, and that's what's crazy. Is
That's
that as
right.
Church people,
That's
we
exactly
can't
right.
even agree on stuff.
I know. And we wonder why we're not making a dent in society. It's because, to be honest with you, holiness is not something that we're real concerned about.
That's right.
I mean, here you get a rebuke from God because he says, who told you that you had the authority to not say that? I have to be very, very careful sometimes. I love to pick at people. And I get picked at. But so it ain't like I can't take it.
That's
But
right.
the thing is, there's some people that I'm very, very careful about making fun of on TV, those televangelists, because you don't really know where some of them stand.
That's right.
You know, now I make fun of what some of them do with some of the stuff, you know, like,
That's right.
you know, whatever, but you got to be very careful. But I do know this, the most damaging thing to youth ministry is making anybody feel like they don't belong or not
Absolutely.
a part. Even the slightest little thing.
That's right.
I don't care what it is. But it's amazing at what the small thing can do. Yesterday, there was a little kid, he's about this tall, about that big around. When he walked up, I was like, okay, I'm in love with this kid already. You could just tell. And he walked up and he was signing up for the football camp. I took his temperature, whatever. He signed the registration thing or whatever. I was like, and he was real. You could tell he was real quiet. And to be honest with you, when you're looking at Marquise Pear, who's 6'6", 380, you're looking at Zimmerman, who's he's like 6'4", and he's like 300. You're looking at Tavion Gass, who's 6'6", he's 320. You're looking at all these guys, and then you kid this big up.
That's right.
And I don't know what was going through his mind, but he's thinking, this is a football camp. Am I going to have to hit him? That kind of thing. I didn't know what was going through his mind. But the fun thing was to be able to just say, you know what? Boy, I think you can play with some of these. Yeah. You can see the little kid like, wheels start turning.
Maybe
So Marquise Pear, that played at Tennessee and played for Baltimore Ravens, he comes up and this little kid, he's just picking at him. This little kid, they bump like they think they run up against each other, Marquise falls and like the kid's like, like he did something. And I thought, this little kid, from that moment, the rest of the day was like, there was a swagger to his walk.
Right.
He was ready for football camp.
That's right.
All because this one guy took about 3 minutes, got a little bit of grass on him, but he made this kid's whole day just with that little moment. And I thought, this is what happens. Let's just say church. We don't even have to say youth group, but it's real evident in youth groups. This is what happens. They walk in. You have the choice. Especially now with the way we're greeting with this pandemic, you have the choice that they could walk in and have the best day they've ever had without being intimidated, without feeling like, I'm not going to make any difference here. Why am I here? Or you have the choice to bring them in to make them feel valued, to make them feel important. And this is the whole opposite of cliques.
But on the flip side of that little kid, he walked in and them big guys said, "Oh, the little kid's over there," then he's dejected the whole day.
Absolutely.
And like you said, one little thing can ruin a whole person's, not only their day. That kid might have gone home and said, "You know what, Mom, I don't think I need to play football no more."
That's exactly right.
He went home after yesterday and he said, "I'm ready to play football somewhere."
That's right.
As church people, like you said, we have an opportunity. You greet people coming in. You have an opportunity to have somebody say, "I'm ready to go to church from here on out," or they come in, and when they leave that day, they say, "I ain't never going back to that church."
Right. That's exactly right. And see, that's the importance of the room. And I'll be honest, our kids do okay with it. Is there room for improvement? Oh, heck yeah.
Absolutely.
But even in big church as a whole, I see it. There's so many you see that come, and here's what gets me. You'll have some say, "Oh, is this your first time here?" I've been coming for a year.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah, and it does. And that's kind of disheartening to that person been coming for a year. The creating the cliques are going to happen. Like I said, athletes find athletes, musicians find musicians, the Star Trek people find the Star Wars people.
Right.
They just mesh. It just happens. But being able to be a part of that, but still include people, that's where we miss it. Because everybody's like, "Oh, they just cliques." Yeah, everywhere is. You're placed in that, but where we can help is not put it in that box.
That's right.
And how do we do that? By getting to the next point. Discipline.
That's right.
Discipline. Self-discipline.
That's right.
First of all.
This one really, and I this is kind of where we're at. This is what we've led up to this whole time.
Yep.
Because as you read this verse, this is what we've been saying. I mean, when he starts here in verse 42, he says,
This is a hard verse.
"But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and thrown into the sea." And it keeps on going here through 49. It says, "If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better for you to enter into life maimed
That's morbid.
rather than having two hands to go to hell." And it kind of goes on through 49 there, and it goes on and says, "Thing, if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. If your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out." We've read over those verses, but really and truly, the meat of what we're talking about is right here in verse 42. "But whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for him if he had a millstone were hung around his neck and thrown into the sea." That's basically saying it'd be better to tie a block around your neck, jump in the sea, and
You know
drown.
what? In Bible times, what the average weight of a millstone was? 3,300 pounds.
Yeah, so I mean, even more than a center, it'd be like
Yeah,
tying a car
ton
around your
and-
neck,
almost a
you
ton and a half.
tying a car around your neck and driving it off into this ocean. But that's what we've been talking about this whole time. You want to live in holiness,
Right.
Do not cause somebody else. to
That's
stumble.
right. That's
And
right.
That's a tough verse because
Yeah. Well, and that's I've been asked, is this wrong or is that wrong or is this whatever? And my thing always comes back to this.
Yeah.
Well, is drinking wrong?
That's
We
the
get into
main
this.
one.
That's the big one. Is drinking a sin? I can't tell you that drinking's a sin. I want you to hear me before I'm done with this because everybody's like, well, especially Church of God folk, drinking is a sin. Where does it say that?
Yeah.
I mean, because then the person that's going to defend is going to say, well, Paul said strong drink's good for the stomach, whatever. You take a sip of NyQuil, NyQuil's got more alcohol content in it than a can of beer does.
That's right.
That kind of stuff. But here's the thing, though. Here's where it becomes wrong for me. If you walk in, that 42, if you walk into a restaurant and you see Neil DeBose eating a steak with a beer right there,
has Neil sinned? Not to that point.
but what if that guy that sees me struggling with alcohol?
What if you get here to number 42 though? It says,
That's
"Be
right.
not one who believes in me to stumble," like you said. And
Yeah,
I've had that.
the alcoholics. Well, the preacher
minute,
was
the
drinking
preacher's
one.
doing it.
That's exactly right. Now
you
I would
call-
rather have a milk. That's
Now
right.
you've caused somebody to
That's right.
believe that believed in him to stumble, and that's what I mean. That's a big thing, and especially for you youth out there watching it. And I would like to say that I went down the path and made all the right decisions, but I'm gonna tell you, I sure didn't. And I wish I had, and I wish I had not wasted time
Right.
that I wasted
Right.
by making stupid decisions. And
Right.
and you get in these points where you justify this stuff as you go out on your own, as you leave the youth department, as you get some freedom on your own. You start saying, well, I can go to this party here, I can go to this hangout here, I can hang out with these people. I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. And then you say, well, I'll do this or I'll do that. But then all of a sudden you say, well, that's not. I mean, yeah, I can't go out with my friends and have a beer too. It don't say anything in the Bible about not drinking.
That's right.
But that's where you come in, and we get, you get this all the time, and people, we hang out with a lot of people, and some friends of ours, and they casually drink or socially drink. I guess
Right,
not.
right.
They're not drunks, and they don't go out
That's
and act
right,
crazy and
that's
do all
right.
that kind of stuff. And people, a lot of people are shocked that me and Stacy don't drink.
Right.
And I told him, I said, it's not. I tell people all the time, I say, it's not a moral issue. Like, I don't think, it's morally wrong for me to drink, as much as I think, and we've kind of touched on this too, and I'm not going to get too far into it, but all the stuff that Tucker went through before
Absolutely.
he got here.
Right.
So for him
Right.
to say, when he's 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, to say, well, my dad always drank.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, what would it hurt for me
That's
to
right.
have a beer or two?
Right.
And I think about that, and it's not and that's not to look at me and say, oh, that's good for Eric. No, that's not to pump me up. That's to say,
That's right.
that's because I take this verse to heart. I do not want
Absolutely.
to be the reason my kids do something
That's right. That's right.
wrong, or any of these kids that sit out here in this room. I don't want you to look at me and say, well, Eric's up there with Neil, they're doing that thing on Sunday nights, they're doing a good job. Well, I hope you're saying we're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And I've learned some stuff from them. But I went to Mariachi's the other night, and he had a beer sitting there in front of him. So
why can't I?
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
if I feel like he knows what he's they know what they're talking
That's right.
about. So why can't I?
See.
And that's not to say if you do that, you're not wrong. And some people, that's just the way they are, and that's okay. And
Right.
but I'm saying, don't put yourself, and especially as Christians now in today's society, you have to be real careful about putting yourself out there as a Christian on certain issues, but being okay with certain issues.
Uh-huh.
And that's where you really get in. That's what that's what Jesus is talking about here.
That's right.
Be disciplined. You have to be disciplined in all
Right.
areas of your life.
Right.
And that's where we've talked about this holiness, and that's where we're talking about today. The little things.
Yep.
Like, is having a beer with dinner a bad thing? No. Is having a glass of wine with dinner a sin, and well, there goes Neil. He's gone to hell now because he had a glass of wine with dinner.
Yeah.
No, but if you cause this man to stumble,
That's exactly right.
I mean, he's telling you, tie a car around your neck and drive it off the road.
That's exactly right. That's right. And then even to go one step further, you got that part to there. That's just getting you on the team. But yesterday, great conversations yesterday. But to say, all right, talk to me. Tell me what it's like to be a D1 football player. I'm asking. He said, "Bud, these kids." He was talking about some of the youngers. Like, these kids don't get it. They don't know what's involved, man. They fussing about having practice. They fussing about 2-a-days in the summer. Wait till you laying in your bed. You ain't go to bed at 12 because you was studying for your test in the morning, and all of a sudden 2 o'clock, your light goes flying around, and it's your head coach in your arms. Get out of bed! And all of a sudden you running 5 miles.
Yeah.
At 2 o'clock, I ain't been asleep 2 hours.
Yeah.
You get back just in time to take a shower and go take your test.
That's right.
Not only that, 5 miles. All right, now put on all your gear. And Mark East will say, man, you know how far it is from that field to the top press box in Neyland Stadium?
Yeah, that's all. I've been there. It's a long way.
He said, Mo, my freshman year, you know how many times I threw up from that field to that press box? You see that. And he said, they don't know the discipline that it takes to be a D1 athlete. So I thought about that yesterday even, and I thought, some of this about being not just a Christian, but if I'm going to be a good Christian, if I want to make God proud. I want, like we mentioned just earlier. I'm getting fired up a little bit because this is a key for us. Both words and actions matter. Christians can elevate or damage a team's perspective of God. If you want God's their perspective of God to be seen through you, you got to be a step above.
That's right.
Doug Fields, which is like the youth pastor's guru.
Yeah.
I've read his book, Purpose Driven Youth Ministry, so many times. And in that book, it says you should be anywhere from 3 to 7 steps above the group of your teens.
Yeah.
In other words, if you're wanting them to grow spiritually, you got to grow spiritually.
Absolutely.
If you want them to evangelize, you got to evangelize. And he just kept pushing it up. So I thought, wow. So if I'm going to be basically the example of who God is, boy, is God in trouble.
Yeah.
Because I got to do better.
That's right.
And how do you do that? Right here. We started with 42 about the millstone, but then it goes here. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. And then he finishes each verse with this. It is better for you to enter into life maimed rather than having 2 hands to go to hell into the fire that shall never be quenched, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. He says that after everything.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So I've said this numerous times. When my mama had to tell me something twice, there was a chance I was in big trouble.
That's right.
God tells you something here about 3 or 4 times just in these few verses and then he says this, if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better for you to enter life lame rather than having 2 feet to be cast into hell in the fire that shall not be quenched, where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Then he goes this, and if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. Same thing, better to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell where their worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. Then it right here. So in other words, that discipline that you've got, it's one thing to be disciplined there, but it's another to have that self-discipline in that you got to watch what you do with your hand, watch where you go with your feet, and watch what you look at with your eyes. And I know I fall short with some of this when it comes to, let it go, ignoring it.
That's right.
Yesterday, and I get it, competitive arena, D1 athletes, playing for $1,000.
That's right.
There was a lot of the macho man was alive and well yesterday. Right. Let's just say that way. It was oozing testosterone on that field.
I'm sure.
And so there was some language. And what was great was that I had a green light to say, hey, man, come on, show you got more intelligence and be able to use your words, dude.
That's
Don't
right.
use that kind of word, that kind of stuff yesterday. But I thought, and I heard all that, but I thought, just let it go. It's just, but No, I can't do that today.
right.
I can't. This gives me a chance to plant a little seed. And I thought there's so often that I'll look and see something wrong and I just let it, not my business, not my place or whatever. And sometimes it's better to just, I'm praying for you, but get out of it. But we've got to do better with our hands, our feet, and our eyes. When we become more self-disciplined, we're raising that value of God. And maybe, just maybe that, look here, the Holy Ghost is going to draw. So what it'll do is some of these kids, maybe we can change that tide of saying, you know what? I've noticed a change in Mr. Eric, Pastor Neil. I want to be like that.
That's right.
I want to do something. That's going to come when tonight's been great for me. Getting rid of these, can't do nothing about the cliques, but opening them up to say anybody's welcome.
That's right.
You want to be a choir clique? Join the choir.
Come on in.
Come on in. Well, I can't sing all that well. Everybody can't sing. That don't mean anything. I know
some of the people in the choir that don't need to be a reason for everybody.
And here's the thing. Well, I can't dance. That don't mean you can't be a part of the drama team. Well, I can't act. Still doesn't mean you can't be a part of the drama team.
Right.
Well, I don't know a lot about computers. I don't either. But I've had to be back there in that booth and run some of them because I hadn't had anybody else here to do it. So open up that clique to say everybody's welcome in here. And we do that when we become disciplined with our life, but then we become more disciplined and say, I'm not just going to be a player. I want to be a team player and a valuable player.
That's right.
In fact, yesterday when I shared with all the kids that were there, I say kids, some grown men there.
That's right.
But when I shared with them and I just said, you know what? The best thing you can do, make yourself valuable.
That's right. And
when we do that, even for the kingdom, we add that discipline to our life. It brings us to the next point. There will be a peace that comes in.
That's right.
And you can't. I never really understood the whole saying of peace that passeth all understanding. That saying, I've heard it all my life.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm thinking, that don't make sense to me until you get it.
That's right.
And then when you get it, you're like, okay, this is amazing. And here we are. Salt is good. Verse 50. Salt is good, but if the salt loses its flavor, how will you season it? Have salt in yourselves and have peace with one another. There's the last couple of days, there's something kind of happened in my personal life that the last couple of days, there has been a peace about me. It hurt, but the hurt brought about some peace for me. And it's almost like, yeah. And I can't explain it. And to be honest with you, I can't put a price on it.
Yeah.
All I know is, Lord, I want more of this.
That's right.
So to get that, it gets to the last point. Faithfulness. Jesus calls his followers to be faithful in everything.
Yeah.
In everything. And in fact, Hebrews, there's a whole chapter about by faith,
That's
Noah.
right.
By faith, Abraham. By faith, Moses. By faith, by faith, by faith, by faith. That is one of the most underrated characteristics that I think. So if you don't believe it, I challenge you to go read my post on that I posted on Facebook about Mahalia Jackson.
Yeah.
The whole Martin Luther King, everybody's like, oh, it was an incredible speech. It actually wasn't. It wasn't. It was actually a move of God.
That's right.
You can think what you want, but it was a move of God. And he was behind there and says, just steady, encouraging him, being faithful in what she could do. Behind him in a choir, that all of a sudden it was like, okay, I got notes, but no, I have a dream.
That's right.
And then the whole speech come out. That kind of thing. You don't believe that your faithfulness is important to me? I'm not seeing any eyeballs in the room.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's tough. It's tough to get up here and talk to you guys and not be able to see your face, see your thing.
All we see is Trevor and Wilkes tonight.
That's right. And a bunch of chairs and nothing. But I mean, that's the thing. But it's the faithfulness is what really draws everything together. And I think it's great that we're ending on this point to bring it all together, because we talk about doing the little things, but you got to have that faithfulness to push you to do those little things.
That's right.
Because if you don't have something that drives you to do it, you're not going to do it.
Yep.
And a lot of times it's Stacy driving me to do half the stuff I do around the house.
That's right. That's right.
But sometimes that's what it takes, and sometimes like you said, it takes somebody being faithful to push somebody else into being faithful.
That's right.
That starts a chain reaction into.
Well, what can we do? Let me tell you this. because anybody that knows Pastor Sims, he's a personal kind of guy too. He's struggling through this too.
Yeah.
Do you know what it means? You say, you know what, we weren't there, son. We kind of watched it online, but I just want you to know we appreciate you.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, these are hard times.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say hard times, I mean the decisions that have to be made. Do we have church? Do we call it off? What we do? You have no idea what a takes you every bit of a minute text can do to somebody's day, man. Or even just say, hey, man, I was thinking about you. Just want you to know I'm praying for you.
And
whatever.
I struggle with that a lot because there's a lot of times when God will lay something on my heart, like, hey, text this person or be an encouragement to this person. And I say, I don't think I'm weird if I like text them out of the blue, like, hey, I was thinking about you today. They're gonna be like,
that's right.
What the crap's wrong with you? But then I think, and a lot of times I miss those opportunities.
Right.
And then I think, but then sometimes when you're faithful to do that opportunity, and the person, you see them later on, and they say, man, I'm not gonna get into it, but I was really struggling with something, and your text, man, that really helped me out. And that kind of stuff, that's being faithful. That's being an encouragement. And being an encouragement takes faithfulness.
Well, great example. The little personal thing that happened in my life that kind of very hurtful and kind of disrupt things. But what was amazing was Tanya Washington, Coach Washington from Alex wife, had just posted something. And it was exactly what she said. She sent me a message. I debated on whether or not to post that. Let me tell you something. That was a straight up word of encouragement. I mean, she ain't had a clue. No clue what was going on. One of the most valuable people to me in my ministry is Adam Williams.
Yeah.
He don't even talk in public. In fact, he said when he came here, I'll help you with anything you need, but if you call on me to pray in public or you ask me to speak in public, I'm leaving the church.
Yeah.
We were laughing about that. But this joker will send me, hey man, thinking about you today. I hope this will help you. And he'll send me a word or a video or something, and I'll look and I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I needed. That kind of thing. Don't think for 1 minute that Pastor Sims don't need those too. I need them. Eric needs them.
That's right.
Wilkes needs them. Just a little sticky note on your kids' windows. Hey, you're incredible. Whatever. We've got to do better with it. Those little faithful things to encouraging and edifying the body of Christ is what's really going to bring us through. And it's amazing that's one of the characteristics to holiness.
That's right.
It's not great singer, great preacher. It's just being faithful.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you, kind of closing up, if you notice all the things that we went through and the characteristics of living a holy life and all the stuff that we talked about living in holiness, there was not anything that talked about talents.
No, none.
I mean, and we circled back to these athletes and these kids playing ball and these kids playing ball. How many times coming through Parks and Rec, you being involved in all that, have you seen a kid with unbelievable talent never amount to anything?
Absolutely.
How many times have you seen that average kid with a hard work ethic go real far in their sport? And that's what I try to, we talk about it, and we try to instill it in Wilkes and Tucker and even Carson, that, hey, you're probably not going to be the most talented out there all the time. But the one thing you can control is you can be the hardest worker.
Absolutely.
And you can be the most coachable kid.
Yep.
And that's what living the holiness life is.
That's right.
You're never going to, I walk into a church, I'm never going to be the best preacher in the church.
Right.
I'm never going to be the best singer in the church.
That's right.
I'm never going to be the best evangelist in the church.
That's right.
I'm never going to be the whatever talent.
Right.
I'm probably not going to be that.
But
person.
I can be faithful.
I can be faithful.
That's right.
I can be disciplined.
That's right.
I can be,
absolutely
uplifting to people.
Yep.
The characteristics of being holiness are things you can control.
Right.
I can't control that I can't sing.
Yep. One of my favorite little kids, I say little kid, young man, that to come through Sumter as far as baseball was Joey Pereira.
Yeah.
Joey Pereira did not have the height that everybody looks for, the speed everybody looks for, but it's been a long time since I've seen a kid have the heart to want to play and play to the best of his ability as him. And to be honest with you, it's what got him noticed.
That's right.
So that was being faithful to what he knew he wanted to do. He had his eyes set on what he wanted to do, and he was faithful to that.
So it's time for some Christians and some church people to start living to their full potential.
That's exactly right.
Because, like you said, God has given you a gift of some kind.
Right.
It may not be to be in front of the church.
Absolutely.
And get the credit.
It may be the encourager.
It may be the encourager.
Yeah.
It may be the behind the scenes guy
That's
that gets
right.
everything done.
That's right.
That people don't notice, but you know what? People do notice.
That's right.
They may not tell you, but they do notice that kind of stuff. So really focus, really work on
Yep.
the little things. These are little things.
That's right.
And they're little things that are big things.
Right.
Being disciplined, having that peace,
Right.
being faithful.
Absolutely.
These
are all that one drop.
Little drop
fills up
here,
that cup.
little drop here, little drop
Yep.
there. Make that your goal in life to live the better holy life.
Right.
And,
That's
and
right.
control what you can control, because that's what we tell these kids all the time. You can't control what the other team does.
Absolutely.
All you can control is what you do.
That's right.
So if you do your best,
Yep.
maybe sometimes you still get beat, but if you do your best, you can at
That's
least say,
exactly
you know what,
right.
I did everything I could.
That's right.
So when we get to heaven, and that's the one thing is kind of reading through all this, and we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks, and that's the one thing that it really weighed on me is when I get to heaven, I want to be able to say I did everything that I could.
That's right.
And have I done that so
That's
far?
right.
No. Am I going to do it? Probably not. But I
Absolutely.
want to try to do it.
That's exactly
that's
right.
the kind of thing. That's what we're talking about.
That's right. That's right. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I hope this stuff has been as uplifting to you as it has to me. These are some things that we as the body of Christ need to work on, the more that we implement in our life, the more successful we'll be as far as the spiritual things that God has for us. Let's close in prayer. Father, we thank you so much for your blessings. God, we thank you because in the midst of all that's happening, you're still God. You're still sovereign. You're still in charge. And God, I pray that you would help us to just obey you, to say yes when we need to say yes. And God, to walk out the plans that you have for us with humbleness, with the peace in our hearts, with discipline, and to know that everybody is included. Come whosoever will. Lord, help us to do our part to make sure that we raise the value of the kingdom and be the team player that we need to be. God, we love you. We thank you for all things. It's in your name we live and we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Remember, tune in Wednesday night, 8 o'clock.